All right, today's 16-bit superhero game is this one right here. It is Batman Forever. This came out in 1995, and Acclaim actually sent the Electric Playground this copy of this game. I've had it for a long time, and I've hated it ever since we received it. It's a terrible game. Let's see if I can get this back in here. And it's kind of infamous because of its brutal difficulty and nonsensical level design. Although, I have to commend Probe, who doesn't make games anymore, but a lot of people left Probe and went off to do some really good things. Probe Entertainment actually worked really hard on the game, and you can tell there's a huge credit list for this thing. 1995, if you remember, was when the Sony PlayStation and the Sega Saturn were coming out, and things were really rapidly changing in the video game industry. And also, we were in the height of the Mortal Kombat hysteria, and Probe tried to make a Mortal Kombat-like Batman game, where they actually videotaped actors in costumes and then digitized them into the video game. And so there's some pretty cool visual effects with this game in terms of, these characters looking, like video, like remnants of what you would see in video. And some of the animation looks pretty cool. It's a lot of stuff that we would have seen in Mortal Kombat games, so like uppercut moves and sweep kicks and things like that. So we see those moves performed by the characters in the game, and it's actually kind of interesting. And I'm also going to say that I really like the music in this game. The music is fantastic. It's got a great gothic kind of vibe, and it's also, high energy. It's supposed to be a brawler, this game, with different levels that you have to traverse, although the platform hopping and the jumping and the using the grappling hook stuff is the worst part of this experience. But there is a kinetic quality to the game where you're trying to get through the sort of hordes of bad guys into the next level as quickly as possible. And the music is totally fitting. I also, I dug the costumes and the styles of all of the different characters in there. There's not enough of them, and they certainly repeat, but there's some interesting goons that are from the Two-Face world, and there's some interesting goons that are from the Riddler world, because those are the two bad guys that you fight, if you remember that terrible movie, Batman Forever. And it was Tommy Lee Jones, and it was Jim Carrey in the film, and of course they're not in the game at all. And you can see some Tim Burton-esque design styles, like giant heads and things like that on buildings that you'll pass by, some really cool-looking trains, and there's, a flying sequence when you're fighting on top of, a floating thing, and you see all the city skyline going past you. So the Burton kind of aesthetic is still, there's still streaks of it, but, they really sort of jumped the shark with Batman Forever. This was just awful. But the game design is really what's at fault here. It just crumbles under the weight of what was probably a pretty intensive production process because, like the Mortal Kombat space and sphere when we have the two fighters going back and forth, it's kind of contained. But if you're trying to take that kind of visual design aesthetic and extrapolate that to a platformer brawler, which Batman Forever tries to be, it just struggles. So you've got these little bite-sized little scenes, these vignettes basically, and then there's actual loading times on this cartridge where it says, hold on, we're going to get into the next area here. And it's so underwhelming. Every stage, every level. They try to do some interesting things with depth where they have lots of foreground imagery and background imagery, but you are constantly lost about whether you can get up to a ledge or jump down from a ledge, or is this door, can you punch this door? Can you punch this background element? It's just brutal, and it's so unclear, and you're constantly confused, and you feel like, did I beat everybody up? And the other thing that's just heinous in this game, they tried to incorporate some fighting game style moves into the combat, and we've seen that kind of thing before. Like Capcom threw in some Street Fighter type commands, some fighting commands, when you're controlling some of the Marvel superheroes, but the precision in the controls in Batman Forever is just unbearable. I mean, I was literally trying everything I could, I had to go online to figure out what the moves were to begin with, because they don't tell you what the moves are when you're selecting all of these different gadgets at the start of the game, which is kind of interesting. You've got like sticky goo and electric pellets and a force field wall, and my favorite thing was the bat bola, which I was actually fairly competent at being able to throw out, but I just could never nail the down forward move, so I never got batarangs out. So I was constantly fumbling around in the middle of a fight trying to throw out a gadget, and it never worked, and it was so frustrating. Or if it did, it was like not at the right time. So consequently, all of that sort of plotting and strategy that you might have before you start a level completely squandered. And really, you're just fumbling and bumbling all the way through anyways, and God forbid the game asks you to make any jumps in any kind of sequential order. It's infuriating. I had to jump on some boxes and swing off of some hooks, basically, to get past a stage, a tiny little stage, because the game can only load in a tiny little stage. But it took me forever, and I kept falling into a vat of acid, and it was just excruciating. And, you know, you'd be bouncing back and forth across the screen, and you're like, what? I don't know what I'm doing. And so many times within the game, that's exactly my phrase. What am I supposed to do? It's so unclear. It's like nobody's played a video game here before. Or they've been playing Mortal Kombat, and they just tried to squeeze Mortal Kombat into this thing. So yeah, it's a terrible game. On the plus side, you can play it with somebody else, but good luck trying to convince anybody else to play this game with you. Luckily, my daughter's only 8, so she has no choice, so she was Robin. What's kind of hard to grapple with this one, no pun intended, is that there's some pretty cool work in here. Like, I like this idea, especially as it stands as this sort of time capsule of a way that games used to get made and how much influence Mortal Kombat had on Acclaim specifically, but across the video game industry, and the idea that digitizing actors to make them video game characters could be a cool new thing to do. It almost feels like we're watching like a 1930s cheesy serial of Batman and Robin or something. And because of that, there's this charm about this terrible game. And I also feel like someone could take that idea and make an awesome Batman and Robin game where you got actors in costumes and you got them to do all these cool moves, and then you did something interesting with the level design and the layout and stuff. Like, imagine a Jordan Mechner developed Batman and Robin game with a lot of these same ideas. It could be really cool. And so my mind was like, because I couldn't handle playing this stupid game, my mind was wandering thinking, yeah, there is a good idea here. And certainly people that love their work and love their job tried to pour their love into this thing, but it's awful. It's a terrible cartridge. And the one thing that you will know about Batman Forever, too, is that you can find it anywhere. If you're on the hunt for classic cartridges, like superhero cartridges like I've been, it's in every store. It's on every eBay listing. You can find it in your area if you're on Facebook Marketplace. Everybody wants to get rid of this game for good reason. So back you go, Batman Forever. I will never play you again. I had to play you for 16-bit superheroes, and I'm only reviewing these games based on how they feel and play today. I'm going to give you a point for your music and a point for the idea of digitizing actors, so you get a 2 out of 10. Stay away.